correctional officer video, we talking about what's it like working for the Bureau of Prisons. That's the federal agency that supervises federal inmates, Department of Justice. I've been working for the BOP for 11 years now. Started in 2013. I started at a prison in West Virginia, FCI McDowell, and I transferred down here to the federal prison in North Carolina, Butner, North Carolina, back in 2015. I worked at a county jail for 2 years before I started with the feds, So I'm just going over, what's it like day to day, going over the ins and outs of it, the pay, the benefits, what's it like dealing with the inmates, the work morale, current trends I see going on, stuff like that, man. Just trying to give people a better idea of what to expect if you're interested in working in corrections, So let's start off with, what to expect when it comes to the pay. The pay these days, I think new officers are starting off around 50 to 60, depending on the area. It all depends on the area. Certain areas, the cost of living is a little higher. So naturally, you're going to start higher, So if you're trying to apply at a federal prison in, let's say, New York or LA, somewhere where the cost of living, you might start on you'll get a higher cost of living adjustment, So for instance, when I lived in West Virginia, the cost of living was cheaper. So, I was at about like 40,000. This is back in like 2013. I was like 45,000 with my cost of living locality pay. When I transferred down here to North Carolina, the cost of living, I guess, is a little higher. So I got almost maybe like a $5,000 or $10,000 pay raise just by transferring down here. I didn't get a promotion or anything. I just transferred. I did a lateral transfer to another facility. But like I said, the cost of living, it's a little different depending on where you're going to be at. But these days, you can expect it to be around 50 to 60,000. 2025, there have been some hiring incentives for new people. They're trying to recruit people for the BOP. So they're being given out like $10,000 sign-on bonuses. I think a condition of that is you have to stay a minimum, I think, 12 to 18 months. So look into that if you're interested in applying. With the overtime, see, this is where you can really make your bread and butter at. They say you're going to make 50, 60,000 starting out, but depending on where you at, a lot of facilities, in the BOP and even in just other agencies, state prisons, county jails, they're short staffed. So there's a lot of overtime if you're interested in making extra money. You can pick up extra shifts. My base salary right now, like I said, I got a little time and I got 11 years in. So my base salary right now is like 73,000. But with overtime, the past, I don't know how many years, it's going on 10 years, I've made over 6 figures every year just by working overtime, So the money's there. If you looking to boost your salary up, you got bills, you trying to save up for your first house, you trying to put the kids through college, you trying to pay off debt. I tell people, man, come in, work the overtime, man. Keep your head down and just stack, man. Stack it up, man. You feel me? What's it like on a day-to-day basis working in the BOP? Okay, working in corrections in general, it's a lot of just observing. Most of the time as a CO, you just sitting there literally on the unit. A lot of times you're going to be working on the unit with the inmates, and you just be sitting there, whether you're in a booth or you're in an office, or you're up in a tower, you just sit there and observe the inmates. The inmates, for the most part, they do the same thing every day, man. They work out, read, watch TV. They're on the phone with their family. They may have tablets they can watch stuff on. They may have computers that they can email their families and stuff. So it's like the same thing. During the week, they go to class. If they're trying to get their GED, they have jobs within the prison that they work. They may work in the kitchen. They may work in a certain department. And it's like the same thing every day. It's pretty routine. You sit there and observe. Every so often, you have to walk around the prison, walk around the unit wherever you're supervising. Make sure no one's trying to harm themselves. Make sure they're not fighting, getting high off of intoxicants, drugs, K2, stuff like that. Make sure they're not trying to escape. They're not trying to harm themselves, committing suicide. And if everything's all good, you go sit back down, man. You feel me? Like, it's like that literally probably 90% of the time. You know, you got that 10% where things just go haywire or something arises within the prison. You may have an inmate fight. You may have a staff get assaulted. You may have a disturbance. You may have a mental health inmate start tripping out. You may have a natural disaster, bad weather, and you got to do an emergency count. Somebody tries to escape. Somebody finds a door unsecured, and you got to recall all the inmates back to the unit and do an emergency count to make sure no one escaped, make sure everyone is accounted for. Stuff like that. A medical emergency. I've had situations where I had to save an inmate's life. I had to give CPR. Inmate had a heart attack on my unit. I had to get on my walkie-talkie, call for medical assistance, and then I put some gloves on. I started pumping his chest, doing CPR. I was actually able to save his life, So, like I said, it's 90% routine, pure. It's the same thing every day. Then you have that 10% of you don't know what's going to happen, So you got to always stay alert, always be on your toes, always be vigilant when you work behind that wall in corrections. And I feel like a lot of times, we address the situation when it arises and then we move on. That's the best thing to do working in correction. Things are going to happen. A lot of things are going to be outside your control. When they happen, you just address it the best as you can. You come together with your coworkers and then you move on. You feel me? This is the next thing I'm going to talk about, man. The benefits. The benefits, I say, for the Bureau of Prisons are pretty good. You got your health benefits, you get your retirement account, the health plan, you get the typical stuff, your medical, your vision, your dental. I try to get the max on that. I got the family plan, I got my daughter on there. The retirement they give us is called the TSP, Thrift Savings Plan. It's like a 401k, but they just call it Thrift Savings Plan. If you work in the feds or another agency or the military, you're probably familiar with it. But that's basically, in a nutshell, your retirement plan. I tell people coming in, try to put as much as you can in that retirement account and don't touch it, man. I put 20% in my retirement account every check, and I try to increase it every year we get paid, or we get a salary increase. I increase my contributions to my retirement account. We get a pension. I think for the BOP is based off your top 3 salaries. So whatever your highest 3 salaries are during your whole career working for the Bureau of Prisons, you get a percentage of that. I think it's just like a formula they have. They'll go into more detail if you actually get hired and go through with the hiring process. I want to say it's like 30-some%, depending on how many years you work, of your top 3 salaries. That's the formula they use. I don't know the exact breakdown. They go over it every year when we do annual training, but that's what they have that. Then they have what's called a Social Security supplement, because the thing is with the BOP, right? If you start at 30 years old, you could do 20 years and you could retire at 50. If you start younger than that, you could do 25 years and you could retire at any age. So in my case, I started working for the BOP when I was 23 years old. So I had to do 25 years. So when 25 years rolls around, I'll be 48, God willing. I can retire. Hopefully everything's good and I can be on my happy way. You feel me, man? So in addition to getting your TSP, you'll get a Social Security supplement because you're retiring earlier than the normal age to get Social Security, and you'll get that until you reach that age. And I believe your Social Security supplement kicks in once you reach that age, and then you get your pension for life. The benefits are good to me overall. I've had to use my health plan. I had to get back surgery. I use my dental plan. All throughout the year, I go get my routine doctor checkups, so they cover a pretty good amount, as far as the out-of-pocket expenses that you have to pay. You got to pay your co-pays, stuff like that. But they take care a good portion of it. When I had my back surgery, man, they paid for a majority of the surgery. And for me, when I stayed in the hospital, I had to do inpatient rehab therapy, man. So the benefits, the health plan is pretty good for the BOP. What's the next thing? The academy, going to the academy for the BOP. The academy is 3 weeks long. You'll go down to Glencoe, Georgia. That's where the academy is. It's called FLETC, Federal Law Enforcement Training academy. You'll stay down there for 3 weeks. You'll go down there. You'll do classwork. You'll go over all the policy procedure for the BOP. You'll have weekly tests. You'll do some agility drills. You have to pass everything while you're down there. You'll shoot all the guns that we carry for the BOP. The BOP, when we take inmates out to the hospital, or if you're working in a perimeter patrol truck, we are armed with a shotgun, a 9mm Smith & Wesson, and an M16 rifle, So all those weapons you have to shoot, and you have to shoot a certain mark in order to pass the academy. And everything at the academy now is pass or fail. So you have to pass everything, your tests, the agility, physical part, and the shooting part. If you fail anything, you will be sent back to your facility, and 9 times out of 10, you will lose your job. So I tell people like this: when you go to the academy, take it serious, man. I've seen people go down there. They thought it was spring break. They thought it was girls going wild. They thought they on Miami Beach for the spring and stuff, and they lost their mind, and they did dumb stuff, and they lost their job. You're still on the clock. It's a business meeting. You're working, man. It's not spring break. This is not vacation, man. Take it serious. Stay focused. You know what I'm saying? This is the next thing I'm going to talk about, the hiring process. Let's go over that, man. So you put your application in on usajobs.gov, right? Boom. You select what prison you want to work at, wherever you at. You're looking to relocate. Boom, put that prison down. Then usually they call you back after a certain while, and they'll say that they got everything they need. They'll bring you in for the interview, and you'll do like a panel interview where you sit in front of like 4 staff members, maybe somebody from human resources, maybe a lieutenant, a captain, a warden, and they'll ask you different questions, man, like a psychological type deal where they're trying to gauge, are you suitable to work in corrections? What would you do in this type of situation? An inmate tries to proposition you. How would you respond to that? It's a staff that's being held hostage, and the inmate, they want you to help facilitate that inmate escaping. What would you do? Stuff like that. They're just trying to see how you respond. Do you have the right mental makeup to work in corrections? So you got to remember, you got to try to pick the most politically correct answers. Say something like, I will follow policy and procedure. I'm going to notify my supervisor that this occurred. I'll make sure I document everything, stuff like that. They want to hear stuff like, they don't want to hear you saying, I'm going to body slam the inmate. I'm going to help. Oh, this is a staff member. He got a knife to his throat. I'm just going to open the gate and allow the inmate to escape. Nah, if you do stuff like that, you're not going to hire you for the job. This is the next thing, man. Promotional opportunities. There's a lot of promotional opportunities in the BOP. There's a lot of different jobs. You have a prison, a federal prison, almost every state in the United States. That's a federal prison, including Puerto Rico and Hawaii. You could, once you get in, you get past your year mark, your rookie probation year, wherever prison you decide to get on that, you could transfer to any prison, And I've always been told this, and I see it firsthand. If you're willing to be mobile and relocate and go anywhere, man, if you're trying to promote up, you can promote up quick within the BOP. I've seen it, man. Somebody starts as an officer, and within like 10 years, they're like a unit manager or associate warden or a captain. They just kept moving, getting promotions, going to different prisons. You're going to have to move now, so you got to keep that in mind, So if you got your mind set on staying home, staying in your home state, you may not have as much promotional potential as someone who's going from prison to prison, getting transfers and promotions, job promotions every time an opening comes up. So, like I said, you moving around the country, you may start on the East Coast, then you may transfer all the way to the West Coast, then you may go all the way deep south in Texas, end up way up in Massachusetts. That's how people do it, man. I see it all the time. People are constantly on the move. The promotion potential is endless if you're willing to relocate and, stay on the move for them jobs. This is the next thing, as far as your time off, sick leave, vacation leave. You were in the beginning as a rookie, you accumulate 4 hours of sick leave and you accumulate 4 hours of vacation leave every 2 weeks when we get paid. So, you know, in the beginning, you start off with no time. So you got to build it up. You know, what I did in the beginning, I waited like a year and some change before I took an actual vacation. Then I had some time on the books. As you get more time in, your vacation leave will go up. So I think it's at 5 years or 10 years. I can't remember the exact number. Then you'll start getting 6 hours of vacation leave every 2 weeks. Then once you hit 15 years in the BOP, you'll get 8 hours of vacation leave every year. Your sick leave, it stays the same. You just get 4 hours every 2 weeks. Your sick leave, you can have an unlimited amount of sick leave. Vacation, you can only carry over 240 hours every year. So if you over 240 hours for the year, by the end of the year, you'll have to use those hours that are over 240, or it's going to become what's considered use or lose. So if you don't use it by the end of the year, you lose it going into the new year. So, you know, you got to keep that in mind. This is the next thing. You go through training every year, you know, where you requalify with the guns and you go through all the policy and procedure. That's called ART. Annual refresher training. So you do that every year after your first year. It's usually like around March. You do the ART. Then in October, we go out to the gun range at the prison and we reshoot. You don't have to go down to Glencoe, you know, and go through the academy again. You do all this at your home institution, whatever prison that you work at. So you got to go through training every year. Basically, they're just going over all the policy, procedure. They're going over important topics, things that we may forget along the way in our career that we need a refresher on every year. And that's a week long, you know. So, and then the guns, you shoot the guns at the gun range. I think that's like 3 days, you know. So that's something that you got to remember too. You know, every year you'll do ART, annual refresher training, until the day that you retire. This is the next thing. These are some downsides working for the BOP. The number one thing is the mandates. You know, that's one of the things working in corrections, you know, you're going to get mandated. You know, we're short staffed and working in a type of environment where it's 24 hours. You have to have a certain amount of people on post at all times, 24/7, 365. There's times where you're going to get mandated. So you may be thinking you're about to go home, just work an 8-hour shift, and the lieutenant calls you at the last minute and they say, hey, we don't got nobody else. We're short staffed. I need you to stay over for 8 more hours. So an 8-hour shift, it turns into a 16-hour shift. You know, it is what it is. They'll tell you that when you go through the hiring process. Can you work odd hours, long hours? Are you cool with getting mandated? If you know you're not cool, if you think you're not going to like the mandates, just don't take the job, because that's what comes with it. It doesn't matter how much time you have in. You know, they go by a list. It's a mandate list, and it's all in order from the last time you were mandated. So when you up to get mandated, you drop to the bottom of the list, and it cycles all the way back until your name gets to the top. So, you know, if you you about to get mandated, man, you know, try to get it out the way. I tell people this: always keep a lot of food on you, a lot of water in your work bag, because you never know what can happen. You may get stuck over, man. Always be prepared. This is the next thing, man. Everything is seniority based. So in the beginning, as a rookie, you're not going to get no weekends off probably. You're not going to get no holidays hardly. You may get some here and there, but, you know, it's one of those things where you got to put your time in and work your way up. You know, my first few years, I didn't hardly see no weekends off. You know, now I get the weekends off. I work night shift. I've been on having weekends off for like the past 6 years, but it didn't start like that. You know, it's kind of like you got to pay your dues. You got to put your time in and you got to stay patient. It is what it is, man. You know, they'll tell you that in the hiring process. You know, they're going to be like, are you willing to work weekends, holidays, night shift, second shift? And if you know you can't fulfill that obligation, then you may want to reconsider with your application going forward with the hiring process. This is the next thing. Some other downsides working for the BOP. The workplace drama, man. Sometimes, you know, it's not necessarily the inmates that you get into it with. You'll have certain animosity with some of your coworkers. You know, you got coworkers, they constantly complain about the job, about how they were mistreated or something, man. But yet they keep showing up to the job. Sometimes you may have some words or a disagreement, get into a verbal altercation with a coworker at work, man. But you know, you just got to treat it like, you know, you're an adult. This is a workplace. This ain't high school. You're going to see it once you get in. Some people, you know, it's like they have the mindset of something that a high schooler or something that we did in middle school. I'm like, bro, we are adults. This is a job, man. You know, leave the drama, the pettiness, stuff like that at home. And you got to remember this, man. You know, just stay in your lane, do your job, do your 8, and then go to the gate and go home, man. Don't take work home with you. Don't take a bad day home with you, man. When you go home, you know, it's a new day, man. Get ready for the next day. You know, sometimes you get into it with an inmate. You know, that's expected working in correction. We're not dealing with the most upstanding people. You know, you're dealing with some hardened criminals, difficult people to deal with. You know, they're going to try to get over on you, play games with you, you know. But that's inmate 101. They'll teach you that in the academy, how to deal with the inmates. You know, how to get them to do what you need them to do, you know, without having to resort to putting your hands on them. If you could get the inmates to do what you need them to do without ever having to lay a hand on them, you know, it's a good day at the end of the day. You feel me? And, you know, a lot of being a correctional officer is, you know, using your words, using your verbal communication skills. You know, your verbal communication skills are going to help you to de-escalate situations when they arise. It's going to help you to get the inmates to comply with your orders when you need them to do things. And it keeps the tension down in the prison, you know. So you always got to think, man, brains over bronze. It's not about being a tough guy in corrections, how many takedowns you can get, how many inmates you could body slam, none of that, man. Because you're not going to last long in this field if you think like that. This is some other advice I'm going to leave y'all with. I'm going to close the video out, man. Always stay safe. You know, stay vigilant. Always be looking over your shoulders. You never know when it's going to pop off, man. Anything can happen. Inmate could try to attack you, try to stab you. You may see an inmate commit suicide. An inmate start fighting each other, man, stabbing each other. So you got to always stay on point, man. Stay vigilant, alert. Know what's going on your unit, man. This is the next thing. Control what you can control, man. If you can't control it, don't let it stress you out, man. Trust me, man. You're going to wear yourself out trying to stress over things that are outside of your control, workplace politics, things that you just have no control over, man. You just got to let it be. Do your job. Focus on your unit, man. Do a good job. Stick to the policy and procedure. That's going to save you every time. And when it's time to go home, just go home and clock out. Y'all like this video, make sure you subscribe to my channel at The Ghetto Bodybuilder. Follow me on Instagram, TikTok at The Ghetto Bodybuilder. I got merchandise for sale. Shop with me on my website. Y'all got any input, thoughts, any comments, anything y'all want me to talk about in future videos, drop a comment. I'll be sure to get back with you as soon as I can. Y'all know how we coming. Let's get motivated.